The answer to many quandaries can be answered by an experiment, or, at the very least, we can get closer to the answer. However, in order for an experiment to be helpful in acquiring the answer to a question, there needs to be some methodology that allows for the experiment to actually provide good information. We call this the scientific method. The scientific method is best explained by example. So let's take the example of wondering if your friend is secretly a baby. The first step in the scientific method is to make an observation and ask a question. In our example, it would probably be an observation that your friend says or implies that they're an adult, which means they're not publicly a baby, which begs the question, are they secretly a baby? Of course, you can't just start making wild claims that your friend is secretly a baby, so it's time to go to the second step of the scientific method, research. In order to really know what kind of evidence you need to answer your question, you need to do some research. In our case, it would make the most sense to research babies and find some qualities of babies that adults don't have. In our example, let's say in my research I gathered these pieces of information about babies. Now that we have researched, it's time to create a hypothesis. Now, the obvious hypothesis in our example would be, my friend is secretly a baby. But unfortunately, that hypothesis is a bit too vague to make a good experiment out of. So we're going to have to come up with something a bit more specific. So let's take some information we learned from our research step, such as babies have incredible grip strength, and use that to make a hypothesis. Using this piece of information, we can come up with the hypothesis, if my friend is secretly a baby, then they will have incredible grip strength. With this, and a couple of leaps of logic, we can reach our next step in the scientific method, an experiment. An experiment can be rather complicated, so I won't go over it too much here. The important thing is to come up with something that actually tests your hypothesis. Try to minimize outside factors and other things that may create false evidence. To quickly look at our example, using our hypothesis, our experiment would need the elements of your friend, something to hold on to, and a way to test the grip strength of your friend. As someone without much of a budget, I don't have any tools to test grip strength, and I don't trust people to be honest in an experiment, so I would probably do something that forces my friend to show their grip strength for fear of their life. Unfortunately, putting people in danger for the sake of science is generally considered frowned upon by the public. Something about human ethics, which sounds like a made-up word, and really just an excuse for uninspired science. Now that the experiment is over, we arrive at our final step, drawing a conclusion. Now, you might think conclusions can be quite obvious, a yes or no, based on the results of the experiment. But it's not as black and white as that. Take our hypothesis about your friend being secretly a baby. It doesn't say that if your friend has incredible grip strength, then they are secretly a baby. It's very possible that they're just a strong person. So our results, if your friend does have incredible grip strength, are not completely conclusive. In scientific endeavors, this can be quite common, and it requires you to go back to the beginning of the scientific method with the new observations and research you've made, and try again and again and again, getting closer and closer to the definitive answer, though you may never get there.